You are watching ILFL Soccer Nights.
Sponsored by Mashuri এবং Hawk and Eagle.
Welcome back, gents. It's that part of the show where we talk about the ILFL and Shanali Otis Veterans League. So in the studio, I have to welcome Nanu Mia. How you doing, Nanu?
I'm fine.
And before I get Nanu to speak, I think I need to show you the results and then we'll talk all about how they came about. Here are the results from the Vets League last Thursday. Aberhanie Vets 2, Shadow Masters 0. Bromley and Tower Hamlets played out a 1-1 draw. London Tigers battered BYM 12-0. Sire Vets beat Beaumont Masters by 2-1. St Catherine's went down 2-0 to Luton Berry Park. And West End Vets were taught a lesson by the Bernardo Legends 6-0. Was it as straightforward as all of that? Nanu, give us all the details.
It wasn't as straightforward as that. As you can see, I mean, it was pretty tight except one or two fixtures, but the remaining games were like really tight. Those ones that with lots of goals were expected anyway, because you had the high-end teams and the low-end teams. Okay. But anyway, with Shadwell and Aberhanie match, on the first half it looked like Shadwell had the upper hand. It looked like they were out there to score some goals, but unfortunately for them, they couldn't finish. Then Aberhanie came through. They stepped up the game and they scored 2 goals. Then Shadwell realised what was going on, stepped up their game and had various chances, but they couldn't finish. So that only says one thing: Shadwell are lacking a striker, and Kamruzu would agree with me that. Okay. With Sire and Beaumont were up against a more decent side than BYM last week. Unfortunately for them, it was Sire were desperate for a win. Everybody knew that they needed those points, and they had to do something about it. I mean, both sides got off to a good start, making chances here and there, but Sire had the upper hand and they scored those 2 goals. The last one was just a couple of minutes before the final whistle. Some people would say lucky, but I don't think luck was on their side. It's just that Beaumont keep doing this rotation. Every 2 minutes, they've got loads of subs. They've even got a goalkeeper for subs, so that says it all. So I think with all of those rotation and subs coming on and off, it takes a few minutes for the teams to adjust to themselves, and that gives the opponents the edge just to get in and score 1 or 2 goals, and which is exactly what happened last week, I believe.
Interesting.
Bromley and Tower Hamlets, that was really entertaining. Bromley were inches away from winning, but luckily for Tower Hamlets, there was a mistake by the Bromley keeper, which was he ended with a 1-1 draw. I mean, I did say last week Bromley had the potential to be a team like Tower Hamlets. They come with a different type of footballing, and they almost did it. So that says it all. It's probably time for Tower Hamlets to make some changes now if they were to keep up with the ambition, because if they don't, then teams like Bromley or Shadwell or other teams might be able to defeat them now. They're studying those teams. St Catherine's and Luton, I mean, we know what the results were going to be anyway. I mean, Luton are a decent side. We know that they're very good. We know they can beat the top teams. Luckily for St Catherine's, Kobira wasn't in goal. It was Motin, so there would have been a few more goals if that was the case, but that's how it ended. BYM and Tigers, I was hoping to skip that game, but I probably won. There's 3 people watching the show, and I know Kamruz is looking at me as well, so BYM had no chance whatsoever. I mean, Tigers were just a different class. I mean, they call themselves Tigers, but they're like a pack of wolves. They hunt like wolves. I mean, they all come at you at once, and Tariq is like the leader of the pack. I mean, if you're going to play with a team like Tigers, you can't have any weaknesses, because if you do...
5 at the back?
Yeah, you put 5 at the back if you're not... if you have any weaknesses, they will find it straight away and they'll exploit it and they'll punish you, and which is what happened to BYM last week. So it's a lot of lessons learned for BYM. With Western and Bernardo's had Western on a plate, basically. 6 goals. Luckily for them, they had West End. They needed those 3 points, and they got those 3 points to keep up. Yeah, they've had 1 or 2 defeats.
Speaking of Bernardo's, I mean, Bernardo's were the team to beat last season. Somehow they managed to go out and they became the invincibles of the season. Abahani are doing well. They may not be the best team in the division, but they're getting their results. Are they good enough to hold on to that position, do you think?
I think they're good enough. As a team, I think they're the best, if you look at it that way. They play as a team. Other teams have quality players, like better than Abahani, but Abahani play as a team, and that's what makes all the difference.
So what Abahani have is...
I'll let you off the leash in a minute, right?
What Abahani have is they have a lot of pace in their team, and they have a lot of aggression, which other teams find it difficult to cope with. Their average age must be about 36, 37. You look at a team like Beaumont or Bernardo's must be 45, the average age. It's a very aging team. So that makes a big difference to Abahani. It's exciting to watch because they can switch the game from strength to speed, just at will, really. That's the good thing about them.
I was also going to add, with Abahani, the games I've watched, they're very tight at the back. I think that helps them, and they don't score many goals, but the 1 or 2 are the killer goals, and they finish the game. They're not going to score like those 5s and 6. They're going to score the odd 1 or 2 here and there, but they're very defensive, and when they get the 1 or 2 goals, they're trying to keep it tight, and that's it. And I think that's helping them. But I think footballing-wise, I still think Tower Hamlets Vets play the best football out of all the teams. Yeah. And obviously Tigers, you can't dismiss them. They'll be in and out, and I think they'll claw their way.
Personally, I think, what do I know? I'm not there on a Thursday to watch some of these games, but I'm looking at the table, and I'm trying to maybe be too smart for my own good here. But you can share the tables with us now if you like. The top 7 teams in 4 games have only conceded 1, 2, 3, 4 goals between them. It's really tight between those top 7, and on any given week, if any one of them teams have a weakness, a player or 2 missing or do something wrong, they can be punished by any one of those other teams. So
it does make a difference, and I was going to say what Nano said about Beaumont's game with Saya. Yes, Saya losing game. What they did, they got this new keeper, and that one player made a difference because we were shooting left, right, and centre, but this new keeper, I think it's about 7'2", he was making saves, and because it's a smaller goal, we couldn't score a goal. So I think if every team make 1 or 2 additions, it does have an impact on the team itself.
I think the same thing happened with the Tower Hamlets game as well, because they had 2 players missing, Tower Hamlets. I think they scored 9 goals in 3 games, and they couldn't buy a goal on Thursday. Yeah. And the goal they scored was a gift, wasn't it? Keeper held it and then dropped it in the box.
Also, if you look at Bromley, the 2 games I've seen, they don't attack, they just sit back. All
very
6,
defensive.
The 7-a-side game, they have 6 players sitting in their own half, and you can't break them down. And they look for the odd counter-attack goals, so to speak. If not, they just sit there. Hence, if you look at the goals scored, they probably scored 3 or 4 goals in the last 5 games. They're not going to go far, but one thing, they will get points off other teams because they just all 6 players sit at the back and stop other team from playing.
I think Shadwell will really kick themselves because had they won that game against Abahani, they'd be top at the moment. They've now dropped from 3rd to 5th because of the loss.
What's going to happen this week? Let's look at the fixtures for the 12th of December. That's this Thursday. Abahani and Tower Hamlets, still the 2 teams who remain unbeaten. Not a game lost in their 4 openings. Abahani got Bromley Legends, which I think will be a tougher game than the game that Tower Hamlets have got against West End. But in between that, when I look at it, I'm liking the look of Luton Bury Park v Beaumont, Rash. I mean, I've been tongue-in-cheek about Luton Bury Park, but they're looking like a good team.
They're a good decent side, and the results will show they've been winning on the quiet side, not making a fuss, not making a highlight, coming in, doing the business and going home. Except for 1 loss, they've been picking up a lot of points, and they do have a few players that are very technically gifted, so that will be definitely a tough game for Beaumont Masters.
And Tigers against Saya Vets at 3 points easily for the Tigers there again.
I think Saya will take heart from their win against Beaumont last Thursday, and like Rashid said, they've got a good keeper now, so if he comes, he'll add value to the team. And Saya, I mean, they will only look to go up. I don't think they'll give Tigers the respect of, you know what, they're going to come and walk over us. So they'll make a game of the night. I think what's interesting to see is how Bromley Legends cope with Abahani, because Abahani have a lot of pace and Bromley are very defensive. They're very solid at the back. So that would be interesting to see the result there.
Shadwell against St Catherine's?
You know, the Shadwell are finding it very difficult to score goals. I know on the face of it, it looks like an easy game, but St Catherine's only lost by the 2 goals to Luton. So I think they'll take confidence from that against Shadwell, and they'll see that Shadwell can't score a goal, and you know, they'll try to be more defensive, really.
I heard Nanu say that in his opening remarks about Shadwell not finding a strike, and I think I remember from last season, That was the difference between Shadwell getting 3 points and dropping points as well last time round.
The game against Abahani was exactly the same. I mean, the game should have been dead and buried first half, 3-0 to Shadwell. But because they couldn't score, I think it was for 30 minutes, it was 0-0. And Abahani really scored those 2 goals back-to-back within sort of 4 or 5 minutes. It's because Shadwell kept knocking at the door and they couldn't open the door. And obviously they get frustrated, and that's when counter-attack they lose. The second goal that Bernardo scored, Abahani scored, a big pardon, was 3 attackers against 1 defender, because everyone pushed up to score, the midfielder made a mistake, and then they were playing ping-pong, the Shadwell defence.
Wow. And Bernardo Legends against BYM could be another, Nana, do you think it's another 3 points for BYM desperately needed, or BYM going to come with something different?
I think BYM is going to come with something different. It's something for Shof by to watch out for.
Well, remember, 5 in the back.
well, do you know what, Nasser, you've not been wrong with a lot of things that you said. You come in here some weeks and you make statements, and I know sometimes Rash looks and his eyebrow gets raised, and then the week you come in the next week and you've been proved right. So I'll wait to see what happens there with that one. Nanu, thanks for coming in and talking about the Vets League. It's the one that we speak most about in a week, it seems, because the football is fantastic. The results are very tight, and I look forward to seeing what happens again this Thursday. Get yourselves down there for some great football again this Thursday. We need to talk about the fixtures that are coming up this Sunday. So this is your chance to look at who you are and what you're going to be doing this weekend. Let's have a look in the First Division for the 15th of December. Stepney B, we saw them in earlier in the show. They're up against Lotus. Battle of the Basement Boys there. 4 points, in fact, for both teams they've mustered. Between them, someone's got to come away with 3 points because the draw's no good to them. Burdett that are the next ones to take on Leytonstone. Iltan, you're up and down, is SCTA. So Iltan, if you go by form, this should be the game that you win. But I think SCTA will have something to say about that this week. They look like they're back to their winning ways. West End Tower Hamlets, that was the top of the table game that we were all looking forward to. Someone's going to take points away from somebody there. And St Catherine's against Weavers, if they can get their 3 points, they're going to take advantage of what happens in the game above them. In the Premier Division, a rejuvenated Newark now take on Stepney, who have now lost 2 games on the bounce. I think they lost their cup game, albeit by penalties, and now lost the league game. Beaumont take on Poplar. London Tigers against Bromley is probably the pick of the bunch in the Prem. Brick Lane take on Sire, and Ireland take on Cannon. Rash, which stands out for you?
The obviously key match is London Tigers versus Bromley. I think obviously Tigers will look at creating a gap between the first and second, and Bromley will look into shorten the gap and looking for a win. I don't think a draw is sufficient. So with the form they're in, the players are back, playing good football. I think my guess would be Bromley might just narrowly win the game.
And in the First Division, for you, Cameras, what stands out?
I think obviously the West End Tower Hamlets game is a crucial, strong game there. But also Burdett versus Leytonstone. I mean, Burdett lost last week, but it was a narrow defeat. So they're looking really to go up. And the young boy who was here, young chap who was here, he's very enthusiastic, very keen. So I'm sure he'll have something to say to Leytonstone on Sunday.
Okay then, well that's it. That's all of your fixtures, that's all the stats, results, and all the key information from last week's football. Nanu, thanks for coming in and keeping us informed on the Vets League. Thanks to Cameras, back again this week in his usual spot, and adding some decorum to the show again. Rash, thanks again for joining us here. To all the boys, the backroom staff, all the crew do a fantastic job in bringing this show to you every week. My thanks to you guys. We're out of time, so whatever you do, enjoy it this week. You've got 2 weeks of football, 2 weeks to make a difference and solidify your positions in the league before we move into the new year. We've got cups and all of those things to look forward in the new year. But for now, from me, from everybody here on the panel, and from all the boys back there behind the window, it's good night from us, and we'll see you next week again on ILFL Soccer Night. Good night.